Hey, Sean, how's it going?
Sorry about that. Stupid thing is a touch screen.
No, that's fine. You're good. I'm just going over these notes real quick before we got started. You almost done with your portion of the outline?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
got an alert though. You're not gonna like.
Oh,
Tucson San Jose has been canceled. The whole series. They haven't announced the makeup date yet.
you've got to be kidding me! Stupid COVID.
Welcome to the Calder Farmstead.
Now the Ice Hogs back out to center in transition. Carlson with Quenneville 2-on-1. Right with Carlson comes Quenneville scores!
Here's a chance for Herrick. Fight, he scores! Off the face-off! Up it's Eminger. Pulled back to Werenski. Has it, shoots one, bounces off a man. 5 seconds left. Werenski, another jam on the shot, turning and firing. They score! They score! They score! And now they catch each other and they both go right over the top. Matching rights to one another. McDermott gets the helmet off of Cassie.
And now, with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out right side with Bear. Looks like cutting to the net. Bear will score!
And here are your hosts, Cece and Sean.
Hello and greetings from the mile high city of Denver, Colorado.
And Moline, Illinois.
All right. Welcome to the Calder Farmstead podcast, episode number 13, lucky number 13, for Friday, February 19th, 2021. If you were hoping for a podcast featuring help with farm-to-table operations, we are not going to be much help. This is an American Hockey League podcast, and my name is Cece Hockley.
And I'm Sean O'Brien.
And we both thank you for tuning in with us.
So if you're new to hearing Cece and I talk about hockey, we're going to preview some of the matchups this weekend for you in the AHL. We both watch a lot of AHL games and are going to talk about what we see when we watch film, as well as use some advanced stats to help us break it down. If that's new for you, you might want to head over to our podcast feed or YouTube channel, wherever you're listening to us from, and check out episode 0. It's a short primer on some of the stats we're going to be talking about, as well as how we view what's important on the ice. So if you're new to some of the more advanced stats terms like the point shares model, or newer hockey terms like controlled zone entries, go check that out so you better be able to pick up what we're putting down. I promise it's not that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes, and let's be honest, you wasted 20 minutes today checking out trailers with Emma Stone as Cruella DeVille. So why not spend a little more time talking hockey with us?
Absolutely. And now that we're done with our season previews, episodes number 1 through number 12 were 2021 AHL season previews for all 28 teams. Now we're in the midst of the season. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop an episode on Tuesdays, recapping the weekend that occurred and all the games and everything, because that's when the glut of the AHL schedule is occurring, is on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then on Friday mornings, we're going to be dropping a weekend preview episode. So we're going to highlight some of the series that are going to be played on the weekends. So pretty straightforward. We're going to split it up into 2 different episodes for the season moving forward. And of course, we'll touch on other news, like, for example, the AHL and CCM have extended their agreement, 5-year agreement. So yeah, pretty self-explanatory, just a quick news snippet there. But hey, we're going to start off and we're going to jump right in and talk about the weekend series between the Lehigh Valley Phantoms and the Binghamton Devils. Now, both teams are 2-0-1. And yeah, I mean, what can you take away from the first meeting of this, Sean?
Well, in the first meeting, Lehigh Valley was the least bad team in the first meeting. Binghamton was flat out bad. 3/4 of the roster looked like they didn't understand where their teammates are supposed to be, how the system was supposed to go. I mean, it was a complete mess in transition. There were lots of turnovers by the Devils. There were just passes to empty space or directly to Phantoms. A lot of players who I would have thought would have been, better, just were not. Brent Seney was terrible outside of literally 2 moments in that game. He had a nice one-on-one where he burned the defenseman and generated a scoring chance on a zone entry. And then the overtime game winner. And then the rest of the game, I felt like he just looked kind of uninterested and like he didn't have a good feel for when the puck was on his stick. Like he had a couple pass receptions that just bounced right off. Matt Walsh also too was an absolute turnover machine in transition. Like, he could not get a single thing going. And Matt Walsh, I think, is a better defenseman than that, but he looked unprepared in that first meeting. He looked better in the game against Hershey last night. He had that one beautiful end-to-end rush that was a highlight reel goal. He looked much better quarterbacking the power play, and he looked less rusty and less lost in transition generating from his own zone. So I think that's going to be something that's going to improve. But the Devils looked bad in the first game against Lehigh Valley, and they didn't look great in the first game of the season either. They started to finally, it seems like, find some things correctly, but they got waxed by Hershey again last night. I mean, yeah, Lehigh Valley, in contrast, they dominated play on the score sheet, but I felt like it was more of the Devils were losing than it was Lehigh Valley really imposing its will, embracing the 2-1-2 forecheck that they use, that the Flyers use, and a really like dominating play as much as it was Lehigh Binghamton not being able to get out of their own way. And for a lot of the game against Hershey last night, it's still Binghamton just looked sloppy. So I don't know how that's going to clear up going into this weekend for them. But a couple of interesting notes that I did have that I wanted to talk about quick. Number one was Logan Day. Logan Day for the Phantoms looked night and day from last season. I mean, I remember watching film on him last season, and he looked rigid. He didn't skate well. He wasn't moving well. Like, he still had a decent shot on him, still, understood how to make plays in transition. Didn't defend that well in transition, but that's okay. But like this season, he's moving the puck well. He's jumping into the offensive zone. He's still not, he's not going to be confused with Connor McDavid on the ice for his skating ability, but like, he looks way more mobile. He's not as stiff. He's not as upright. And thanks to the diligent work of Brad Keffer and his Lehigh Valley tracking project, we have some fancy numbers that we can use to look at Logan Day, as well as just what we see with the eye test. I have possession and zone entry numbers for the Phantoms, and Days look very good in a 3-game sample size. He has a 53% Corsi and a 72% scoring chances for. So we didn't get to cover those in our episode 0. So I'm going to try and really briefly touch on them. And we didn't cover them because we never have Corsi data at this level. So that 53% means of all the shot attempts that are taking place while Logan Day is on the ice, the Phantoms are taking 53% of them, which is good. Anything over 50 is good. The further over 50 you are, the better it is. Scoring chances are basically that you have a good chance to score on that shot. So it's not just a throwaway point shot or something from, the goal line where you're just throwing it into the goalie with no prayer going in. These are your more dangerous chances taken from inside the house or taken off a past play that's more likely to score a goal. And the fact that he's on the ice for 72% of them when he's on the ice, 72% of the scoring chances are happening for the Phantoms. I mean, yes, it's only been a few games, so I'm not going to try and be like, he's going to be the best defenseman in the league. But like, those are very impressive numbers, and it backs up what I'm seeing when I watch him play.
Well, yeah, that's a pleasant surprise for the Phantom that Logan Day's making strides in the right direction for sure. Now, speaking of Lehigh Valley, their penalty kill, I noticed 100%, but their power play, big old goose egg. What's up with that?
So on both ends, I think that they have gotten puck luck that has very much staked its claim to those numbers. And yes, when we're dealing in small sample sizes, luck is going to be the predominant factor in these, but it's been luck in different ways. So let's start with their power play. Playing 2D on their power play units pretty regularly is never going to help. It's been established for a long time. The best, unless you have two really just stud offensive defensemen, which in a full season with a full roster, you could make that argument from Lehigh Valley for playing two of them, but Zamula is not one of them. But they should be playing more 4 forwards, 1 defenseman. I would put Logan Day and Wyatt Wiley as their guys right now that are on the roster. When Derek Pouliot comes back, he's, you can make a case for Day and Pouliot and Wiley as being 3 and having 1 3 and 2 3 forward 2 defenseman unit. But for right now, I don't think putting Zamula out there is helping them at all. Pascal Laberge has also gotten power play time, and I think that's not a good move. They are the rare team also with their power play formation, and the Flyers mirror this a little bit, that don't really use the 1-3-1 as other teams do. So the 1-3-1 power play formation, where you have a net front guy, a bumper, 2 guys on the half wall, and then typically your defenseman at the top. They use more of an outside kind of almost like a pentagon, where they have guys along the half wall and then 2 not in front of the net, but by the goal line. And they rely a lot more on rotation and kind of having guys crash in from the weak side, which can be effective, but is also, you don't have guys stationed in front in the kind of high danger areas. You're more counting on transition and being able to catch guys on backdoor plays. It can be effective, but can also go through long stretches where if you have guys that don't handle the puck well or who can't find that lane, you're going to have problems. Some of their power play zone entries too have not been executed well. That will always hurt you. They've had some bad shooting luck. There was one instance where I remember Zayd Wisdom put one that clearly should have been in Binghamton and just put it over the net and wide. Penalty kill wise, their PK looks fine, but I think they've taken advantage of playing Binghamton, whose power play has not figured it out, much like their transition game and everything else, and Hershey, whose power play is bad. Like they use they use the 1-3-1 structure kind of for Hershey, but they don't try and use it to create passing lanes across the slots or to use any of the other established plays that the Capitals definitely do. Hershey basically tries to take shots from the outside, from, way outside, and hope that they can generate rebounds and like screens and stuff, which is always going to be an ineffective way to generate offense. And yet that's what they do. And that's why their power plays struggled for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense why their penalty kill is so good. If you got 2 teams that power play is, not great, Bob.
Yeah.
So, well, hey, let's talk we talk special teams. Let's go ahead and move to goaltending. And, AHL, ECHL stalwart in the Devils organization, Evan Cormier. He's good? ?
I'm Ron Burgundy.
Yeah.
While still rusty, he's looked closer to good than I expected. I'm always hesitant when stalwart ECHL guys, Ralph Kademi is another one, come up and I don't expect much from them. I don't expect a lot of that offense to transfer because the game at the ECHL level is just different than the AHL, same way AHL to NHL. It speeds up the stuff that you do and can get away with doing at those levels. You can't anymore. Guys are better. Guys are faster. They're better coached. They're more professional. But Cormier, he's gotten some good luck, but he's been a little rusty, but he's also, he's moved well and done enough. I did count a few times where he was on the receiving end of a player in a high danger area, just shooting it right into his glove. There was one rush chance that the Devils had where guy just his glove is just right here, puck goes right in, doesn't have to move, doesn't do anything, just boop. Oh, that's a nice one. There was the one I talked about with Zayd Wisdom where he had a wide open top quarter of the net. Cormier was down and out and just shot it over the net. So he's had some of those good moments, but overall, he's looked good tracking the puck. He's moved well. I thought Gilles Sen also looked very good in the loss to Hershey. I mean, he had to be. That game probably easily could have been 4-1, 5-1 if a lesser effort by him was put in. But he moved well. He tracked the puck well. He made a couple of miraculous saves on breakaways. So the two of them have both looked good. But Cormier has been, I would say, more impressive than I would have thought. But there's still a little bit of voodoo in those numbers that I don't exactly trust yet.
Sure. That's completely fair. Now, speaking of voodoo, we'll continue on. Zane McIntyre. Is he good?
No, he's not. Okay. He has been on the receiving end of 2 very light workloads. Game 1 versus Hershey and game 2 versus Binghamton. Both of those games, we've talked about Binghamton just being a tire fire through three quarters of that game. Hershey, less so, but he did not face a very dangerous workload in that game. He's still slow making reads, especially off pucks from below the goal line. Like, he is dangerously slow, moving from his RVH stance to out from a pass from behind the goal line. He'll be guarding the post, and by the time he's out of his post guarding reverse vertical horizontal like pad stance, and out to challenge the shooter, like, that puck is gone. And there have been a couple of times in which he's benefited luckily from it. There was one against Binghamton where the player just shot it right back into his chest. Hershey scored a goal right off of this exact thing, where they had a pass from behind the goal line, and he's late getting out of that RVH, and it goes right over his shoulder. He's also been bad on rush angles. The first goal Hershey scored in the one game, 20 seconds into the game, just rush chance that blows right past him. I mean, clean look at it, didn't, was just the one skater coming down on him, didn't have to worry about a pass, just burns right past him. He's off his angle. He had a couple others that are same exact spot too, coming down on his blocker side, that he's giving up that angle glove hand. He had two that hit the post, plus that goal that went in just in the game against Hershey, like exact identical chances. Those are not things that make a .926 save percentage sustainable.
Right. Well, hey, we'll talk about skaters now. We've been talking about goalies. Binghamton. We'll go to Binghamton too. Anybody from Binghamton kind of stick out to lead the charge for the Devils?
I mean, Nolan Foote has looked good. Has looked the best, I would say, of Binghamton so far.
Okay.
He definitely, like, that whole team in general, it's hard to find someone who I'm like, that guy looked great beginning to end. Everyone definitely looks like they are still shaking off rust there, which, again, is completely understandable.
Right.
In a lot of these early games, it seems like the team that is just simply the least rusty. But Foote has definitely been the one who is, I don't know if I would say generated the most offense, but been the most dynamic to watch. Now, it's not been perfect, but we'll get to that. But I want to say one thing about Foote is he has something that you don't see a lot in hockey, which I like to think of in NBA terms as gravity, where he pulls defenders to him. And because of that, that opens up other guys. And there have been a couple instances of him finding soft space with the puck and then pulling two defenders to him. And then he realizes that means someone else is open. And he'll either move the puck to them, or he will pull defenders into him and make a play with someone else to get a puck to an open guy. And there have been a couple instances of that, and it's been really interesting to see that kind of gravity. You don't see that a lot in hockey, where you can tell defenders, no, I need to make sure I'm on this guy, and will leave their assignments to go cover him because they're scared. And Foote has definitely been the forward that he makes things happen when the puck is on his stick. And I also don't think, too, that that's been a case for too many of their games early on. I wish that he would get more puck touches, because he's their most dynamic forward. And if I were Mark Dennehy, I would be finding more ways that I can get him puck touches, because he is the only forward on the roster right now, as Street and Senny are up in New Jersey for who knows how long. He's the only forward on the roster right now who I feel like can create offense by himself. He's certainly the only one that's been able to create any kind of zone entries, as we've talked about. The transition game is bad. But that's not to say that he's looked nothing but roses. His skating is still a work in progress, and his defensive effort hasn't always been great. And there are some small details too that maybe don't burn you at the lower levels of hockey, but will in the AHL and the NHL. One, for example, is Hershey's first goal last night came because he played a 1:14 shift and was too gassed from being out there too long to cover his responsibilities in transition. Hershey comes right in off of a counterattack and scores. And if you watch the film, you can see, like, yeah, he's been out there for a 1:14, took a lot of hard strides. He's out of gas and just cannot keep up at the end of a shift. Hershey counters, puts the puck right past where his responsibility was in transition, and scores.
Oof. Yeah. And like you said, with Ben Street being called up, I mean, that definitely doesn't help the B Devils cause either. So
No, it doesn't. Especially they're really going to need to pray he makes it back in time for their series against Lehigh Valley, because he's really their only good option at center. Like, Schmelzer has been somewhat okay. St. Denis, no. Studenich has been okayish, but he's a better winger. And beyond that, it's not great, Bob. They're really going to need Street. Otherwise, like their center depth is just not there.
Well, pivoting over to Lehigh Valley, let's talk about some of their skaters. Zayd Wisdom. Now, where is this success that he's been having coming from?
I mean, I was high on him in his preview. I disagree with you that he has the second best name in hockey. He has the best name in hockey, Zayd Wisdom. But like I said in our preview, he has unmatched work ethic on the ice. He is someone where when he's on the ice in the games I've seen him play and the shifts I've followed for him, he's involved in every shift. Like there is not a shift that I can think of where I'm like, oh yeah, he was on the ice, but like he didn't really do anything. Like he's in there making hits, creating zone entries, generating scoring chances. He has a really good ability to create net drive and find soft areas in the zone. He understands how to create 2-on-1s on zone entries where he can force basically a defender to play him and his winger and then just kick the puck out to him or force the defender to anticipate that kick out and then just go right by him. He's done a good job of that. He's done a good job of finding soft spots in the home plate area where he's been getting open for, I think, at least 3 or 4 really good quality scoring chances. I think it's just a matter of time before he breaks out.
Now, speaking of another guy that's been breaking out, you wouldn't tell by looking at the score sheet because he, in the 3 games that he's played, he only has 1 assist, and that's really his only hard statistic that you can see. But Max Willman, I mean, he's been on a bit of a tear. I mean, yeah, he's got some intangibles, obviously, that transcend that score sheet.
And I mean, he absolutely has been on a tear. If you've watched the games, he's been unmissable. Like I said that Wisdom has really stood out on every shift. Max Willman, it may not be every shift, but he has stood out. And I mean, he was under the radar coming into this season, even ours. He wasn't included in our season preview.
No, he wasn't.
Sorry. I really didn't think that he would be an impact player based on, the viewings from last season, his stats from last season. Nothing really said like, oh my God, if we don't talk about Max Willman, we're going to be, not informing fans of an important player. But wow, has he really made me look bad for that choice so far this season? He has been the straw that stirs the drink for this offense so far. His underlying numbers too are impressive, and albeit 3 games, 54% Corsi, 62% scoring chances for. He has 18 carry-ins for zone controlled zone entries. The next closest on Lehigh Valley is Shushko with 7.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's taking charge.
Yeah, like he is the one that is generating offense in that team more so than anyone else in their game so far. And I want to give a shout out to Brad Keffer and Matty Campbell for their time and effort with the Phantoms tracking data. Without that, we would not get to talk about Corsi or fancier stats than what we're able to produce ourselves. Tracking data is awful to do yourself. I've done it. I've gotten paid to do it for 2 seasons now. I've done it on my own, unpaid. Brad Keffer and Matty Campbell, thank you guys so much. You can find their work on fancystats.com, PHANCY stats.com. It's an amazing resource, and I genuinely wish there was a Brad and Matty for every AHL team.
Doing the Lord's analytic work for Lehigh Valley.
Absolutely.
In Allentown, for sure. All right, so you broke it down. Give us the picks for who you think's going to either sweep or split, or what's going to happen this weekend between the Phantoms and the Devils.
So I think a lot of that has to do with who is available. Lehigh Valley currently, I believe, only has 11 forwards and 7 defensemen on the roster. I mean, now let's be completely honest. If they have to play a man short, or they have to play 11 forward 70, that's not a huge loss. It's more of who the people they have missing are. Kashe is missing for them, and he has been a very big part of that offense as well. And if he is back and the Devils don't have Street and Sene, then Sen or Cormier are going to have to stand on their heads to keep the Phantoms from just rolling them. If Lehigh Valley doesn't have Kashe, but the Devils have their guys, I think you could probably at least pull a split for the Devils. If not, maybe steal some OT points. If none of them are back and it's straight up, the guys on the roster as we stand here late Thursday night recording, I'll take LV to sweep. They're a deeper and better team. I trust their goaltending way more. I think this should be, or sorry, I don't trust their goaltending. I don't trust Lehigh Valley's goaltending way more, but the skaters in front of them are just better. Like that's a better and deeper team, even when we're stripped down to the bare bones here.
Yeah. And I mean, when your goaltending's kind of a push for both sides, the skaters in front make all the difference. That is for sure. So, all right. Well, that's our first series that we're going to be previewing for the weekend ahead. And yeah, we're going to take a quick break, get some advertisements going so we can pay some bills. And on the other side of it, we will tackle the Groundhog Day division and focus mainly on the Providence Bruins. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. After these messages, we'll be right back. Yeah. All right. And we are back from break. And we are going to be talking about the Atlantic Division, or as Sean and I like to call it, the Groundhog Day division, because you only have 3 opponents that you're going to be seeing 12 times a piece. So, well, it's Groundhog Day again. So Bill Murray would be proud of this one. Now, the scheduling has no back-to-backs all season, which I think is kind of impressive considering, like I said, you've only got 3 teams in this division.
And I mean, some of that is built in because they kind of wanted to do no overnights, none of that kind of stuff. And because you can't swap, teams, I guess they didn't want to do, a Bridgeport and a Hartford trip because you have to stay overnight somewhere in that. They decided to just, they don't have any of the crazy scheduling, which I think is actually a big advantage for Providence, as the physical grind of the season is something that they can overcome a little bit more, as they are the team that is going to be grinded on by the other 2 the most. So I'm not saying it's, oh my God, Providence is going to win the division now because of this, but teeny little piece I think is good for Providence.
Sure. Yeah. And speaking of Providence, boy, it sure has been difficult to predict who's going to be up and who is. I mean, we encountered it a lot in our season previews. We'd record an episode and be like, "Oh, hey, guess who just signed a goaltender?" Well, there's been some roster changes for Providence as well.
Yeah, and even when we were formulating the previews of like who we're going to talk about and who we're not, there were a couple of names that we left off, not because we didn't think they would be good, because I'm like, no, they're not coming back. They're going to be at least a taxi squad guy all year. Mm-hmm. 2 of them are, guys who got sent back to Providence. I'm shocked Stanika is back. Mm-hmm. He looked like in the bubble, he'd carved out a role on Boston's line with Krejci, but he's been bad for them in a limited role this season. He has not looked good. And I thought they would, still keep him up practicing with Boston, but it looks like at the very minimum, they're going to yo-yo him a lot, which I guess in this season may not be as bad as it normally is in previous seasons. But Stanika is back. So is Dan Vladar. I would have bet good money that Dan Vladar was at minimum the taxi squad goalie all season. Like I thought, given how heavy the schedule was going to be, he would get a couple games in there. He'd get to work with the developmental coach, all of those things. No, he's back. He's getting starts in Providence already, and that was an upset to me already in the AHL season. But I need to stop trying to predict like I know the teams are going to do with their taxi squad situation and all their prospects and stuff like that, because it's one where some of the stuff they do makes complete sense, others make sense in hindsight, and then some I'm just like, I don't know what you're doing. So
yeah, it can vary from team to team, because every organization is going to handle this situation differently. And of course it's, COVID season. So it's like everything's up in the air. Nothing makes sense. There is no logic. It's like whose line is it anyway, where the points are arbitrary and nothing makes sense. So
that is the AHL standings this year if there is no Calder Cup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where the points mean nothing and everything makes no sense, or however it is on whose line. But anyway, so you're talking about prospects. Tell me, who is looking good from the P Bruins and why thus far this season?
I mean, I have been damn impressed with Jack Ashan. Mm-hmm. Ashan has 3 important things. Number 1, a work ethic that is very, very strong. He's constantly involved in whatever's going on, and he doesn't seem to get fatigued by it. Like, he moves a lot, but he makes smart moves, but it doesn't seem to wear him down. I know a lot of guys that when they're super engaged in everything that's going on, like mentally, they're just worn out by the time the third period comes, but he doesn't seem to have that problem so far this season. It's early. Then there are also two different kinds of speed. So there's top end speed, which is basically saying, like, I can hit a higher miles per hour on the speed gun than you. This is the kind of speed that Laku has. And then there's acceleration, which is just, I get to my top speed the fastest. That's what Ashan has. He has that kind of speed. He won't be able to turn corners on guys, but he can gain that separation in a quick second just by taking a good first 2 steps, and he can pull away from somebody before they eventually catch him. And that's an impressive trait, and it also pairs very well with his hockey IQ. It's a very good complementary skill because he can see plays as they develop and see the moves ahead, and he has the footwork and the edge work to be able to go and attack, as opposed to, I can see a play happening, but I can't do anything about it. It's like watching a horror movie as the audience and yelling like, no, don't go in there. He's someone who can actually jump into the play before the horror movie, happens. And it's been a very entertaining thing to watch with him, is him jumping up into the play, killing plays in the neutral zone and turning them back into a counterattack. It's been really fun to watch him. And I think it's something that he can sustain too. Like, this isn't just puck luck or a couple of good bounces. Like, these are intentional movements and a skill that he's clearly developed. I love that they're putting him on the power play. I think he's great there. And I think he's going to be a pleasant surprise for Providence this season.
Now, Cam Hughes, Jakub Lauko, those guys leading the charge early. Will that continue? Why or why not? Your thoughts, Sean?
I think Laku can make it stick this year, strictly based on the fact that he has Ricky Bobby speed. And the rest of this division, outside of Greco, does not. And because this division is literally just Groundhog's Day, again, we're going to see the same 2 teams every game. That gives him an advantage of knowing that, 99% of the time, he's the fastest dude on the ice by a good step and a half. And that's been something that Providence has used to their advantage, and that he's used, like, in the way that they construct plays. Like, if he has a moment to where he can see, oh, we're recovering this puck in the defensive zone, he's just gone. He's taking off and he's burning defensemen on the blue line by 2 or 3 steps. They had one play on the power play that was an intentional icing that he raced down to beat and then fed a puck right to the front of the net to someone else who burned by their defender. Like, they fabricated a 200-foot 2-on-1 basically, because Laku is that fast. And because he's going to be able to have that speed advantage, the entire season against both teams he's playing, I think those concepts that they're using to attack Bridgeport and to attack Hartford with his speed are things that are going to be able to stick with him. He also is a good shooter. He has good hockey IQ. He's had a lot of good raw tools. So I think he's going to be able to manage to sustain that level of scoring. Maybe not, quite to the, 1.25 a game he's on right now. Maybe not to that level, but like, he's still going to be very, very productive for them this year. Cam Hughes, on the other hand, I don't hate Cam Hughes, but I don't think he's going to be able to maintain this pace. I think he's played fine, but I think his points have clearly pointed more towards not flukishness, but like good fortune. I mean, his goal was a bounce off a defenseman's leg on the power play when he was behind the net. That's not going to happen for you often. You can't score 20 goals like that. His first assist was on a kick-out pass on a zone entry that Lantosi ripped to the net. Like, yes, that was an intentional play, but like, it's not like he set up a tap in. Like, Lantosi still had to go in and finish that play. And his second assist was a secondary assist on an empty net goal. Like, yes, it's an assist. It counts in the stat sheet, but like, your season is not going to be built upon those. So I think he's played okay. But I don't think you're going to be seeing that level of offensive counting stats from him to this level. I think he'll still chip in, but I think so far from what I've seen from him, I stand by he's a third middle 6 kind of center. But that's so one sustainable, one probably not.
That's fair. Yeah, split the difference with two. So that's Providence. We're going to be focusing on them just because Providence is, really good, and Hartford and Bridgeport not so much, eh? But let's talk about the Wolfpack and the Sound Tigers, the other side of the Groundhog Day division.
Yeah, on the other side of Punxsutawney here, losing Keith Kincaid is not good for Hartford. I know, it's brilliant. Hashtag analysis. But their biggest problem has really been their starts. In 2 of the 3 games, they've gotten caved in during the first period. The other game that they played was against Bridgeport. They had a better start because Bridgeport handed them that start. They just couldn't stop giving them power plays. And I think they outshot them in the period like 11-2 based on 3 power plays. Like, yeah, that looks like a better start on paper because if you had come up with even a mediocre start, that would have been a failure. Right. But if I'm the coach of Hartford, I am making sure that all of my practices, whatever our first drill is, whatever that we're doing when we hit the ice, up tempo, fast. We've got to get guys moving and in the groove because they've just come out flat in 2 of those 3 first periods, and they don't have the horses to play catch up in the second and third. Even when they got off to a good first period against Bridgeport came back and skunked them 5-2. Like, they're a team that is going to need to be a full 60-minute team because they're a physical, grind you down kind of team. And that's not something where you can only do for the last 40 minutes. For Bridgeport, 2 things that I've taken away from watching them. Number 1, obvious, again, hashtag analysis, stop taking bad penalties. Again, if I were the coach in Bridgeport, I'd be running drills on defensive body positioning at least once a practice somewhere in there, because that's what's getting a lot of penalties for them is you have guys that are just losing body position on their assignments. They get by them with the puck, and instead of letting them go by them, they get a stick in there or, try and make up for that positioning with, bad play, and they're getting called for it. Some of the penalties they've taken, I will cede, have been light calls, we'll say. Ones where I personally, if I were the ref, would not have put my arm up, but I think is still within the spirit of the law, but on the real light end. There also been a couple of just dumb penalties. So don't take dumb penalties too. Hashtag analysis. But Timoshov's boarding penalty from last night, bad. Like, you hit that dude from behind. You had to know when you did it that was dumb. Don't do dumb stuff. Second general piece of advice for Bridgeport, besides not taking bad penalties, stop letting Jeff Kubiak on the penalty kill. He doesn't have the small area skating. Doesn't have the agility, and he doesn't have the defensive zone awareness to be a good penalty killer. And I've already seen him cheating out of the zone early. On the penalty kill, he is cheating out of the zone when his team, no, don't do it.
Just don't. Yeah. Well, all right. We'll go back to Providence real quick to finish up the Atlantic Division here. And apparently you are giving the coach a chance, if I'm reading this correctly, for a 6-pack of beer because of a decision that, Jay Leach, the Providence head coach, made later in the game. And of course, with analytics and me being a Patrick Waugh goaltending coaching fan, at least of certain decisions, I'll quit with the buildup and just let you. Why do you want to give Jay Leach a 6-pack of beer, Sean?
I don't just want to give Jay Leach a 6-pack of beer. I will give any coach that pulls their goalie early a 6-pack of beer. So Jay Leach pulled the goalie with 3 minutes and 42 seconds left, down in the third period, down by 2. Now, ideally, you would want to pull earlier than that. Down by 2, the rule of thumb is about 7.5 minutes down by 2. Patrick Waugh, clearly on board with that plan. Down by 1, you want to pull around that 3.5, 4-minute mark. But still, I can't remember a time in recent history watching AHL games that a coach has pulled a goalie with that much time left. And I'm a big believer in be the change you want to see in the world. I obviously cannot, run to the Providence bench or any team's bench and yell at them to pull the goalie. I can only reward them the best I can from my position here in Moline, Illinois. So what I'm proposing is any coach that pulls the goalie with ample time to spare. If you come, if you're down by 1 and are getting in that 3-minute mark, or you're down by 2 and you're getting in that 6-minute mark, or Jay Leach, like you've way exceeded my expectations in understanding that concept of pulling earlier and giving your team time. You send me an address and a choice of beer, and I will send you a 6-pack of beer to that address, whether that's your coach's office, the front office, wherever you want it to go. Slide into my DMs. Our email for the podcast is able to be found. Just shoot me a message, an address, and a beer. And as long as you pick a beer that I can actually get, if you want some Australian bred wheatgrass beer, I don't know if I can get that one to Providence, but you send me a choice of beer and an address, and I will ship that beer to you every time that you do something like this. And any coach that does that in the AHL, 6-pack of beer, goalie pull challenge. Let's go.
And I tell you, Twitter at Calder Farmstead, really simple. And I forgot to pull up the link tree here. So there's the banner scrolling across the bottom.
Yep.
That's linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. You can contact us in a lot of different ways if you just go to that link. So
all of our, the link to our email is at the bottom of our link tree. You can find us a multitude of ways. Come claim your 6-pack of beer, Jay Leach.
There you go. All right. Well, hey, what are the picks for this weekend for the Groundhog Day division?
Barring some unforeseen roster moves like Kincaid coming back down or something wild but not totally implausible like Josh Hosang's music playing and him running to the ring with a steel chair, something crazy like that, I'm taking Providence and sweep both games. If if Hartford, yep, I'm maybe I've had too much of the 6-pack of beer already.
Maybe.
But if Hartford or Providence pull any of these games out, it's going to be Bridgeport's penalty kill improved tremendously, and they were able to grind down and win those, dirty, greasy goals. They were able to control transition better because you can't let Providence just go flying into your zone. I mean, same thing for Hartford. You need to control Providence's tempo. You need to control the pace of play. So if Providence loses either of these games, that's what it's going to look like. Slow, low event, boring hockey. But I'm taking Providence in both of them. I think they're clearly the best team in that division, and they're the fastest, and they know that they're the fastest.
Yep.
CC, what about you? Give me some. I've broken it down for you here. What are you thinking?
I mean, come on. We talked about it ad nauseum during our season preview of the Groundhog Day division. Like Providence, by and large, of these 3 teams, is the best team. Now, could, Hartford or Bridgeport come in there and sneak a game or 2 out of them? Yes, but they're probably going to finish their 24-game season. I'm going to say at least 18 or 20 wins. They're probably going to, they're going to dominate this division handily. I think they could at least, I'm doing like a macro view here. You're talking micro. I'm doing macro here.
Right.
I'm going to say Providence goes 18 to 20 wins this season, and they're going to take the division by at least 6 or 8 games, I think.
I could see taking the division by a handful. I think they'll end up getting caught by a couple of them. Like just, randomness with COVID rosters and
sure,
the Bruins, end up in what the Flyers situation is right now, where half their roster, is MIA. Like those moments are going to happen in this division. So I'm not going to go quite that far, but for this weekend, you like Providence for both?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up. Mm-hmm. Jay Leach, get in touch. I want to send you beer.
Yeah, Coach Leach, Sean is offering you a free 6-pack for your goalie pulling strategy. I was going to say strategery, and then then I was going to say strategy, and then my tongue got twisted. Anyway, let's end this segment. Atlantic Division is covered. We are going to go over to the Central Division, and we're going to bring a friend, Elaine Shercliffe, AHL Central Division full press hockey correspondent, is going to be joining us on the other side of this advertisement break. So hang tight. We're not going anywhere. We're just going to take a brief break and let the ads do their thing. So stay tuned. All right, and we are back from our ad breaks, and we've got our first guest to the Calder Farmstead after our season preview episodes that we did before the 2021 AHL season started. So to invite on to talk about the Central Division, specifically Iowa and the Chicago Wolves, is our, well, pretty much the other side of the AHL correspondence that we have going on with Full Press Hockey. And she is covering the Central Division at large, all 6 teams, including her home market of, well, the Cleveland Monsters. So without further ado, we're going to bring on Elaine Shercliffe. Elaine, welcome to the program.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thanks for coming on. So Elaine, like I said, and leading up to it, you know, a lot of Central Division hockey is being played, but mainly what we wanted to focus on were the Iowa Wild and the Chicago Wolves. So first and foremost, I'll start off with asking you real quick. So Chicago, they've got 97 penalty minutes and an 80% penalty kill. Now, some of those are from fighting majors and 1 game misconduct, but they've been shorthanded 30 times in 5 games. How in the hell are the Chicago Wolves 5-0 right now?
Well, first of all, I just have to say that they would have a higher percentage if Rockford didn't continue to light them up on the power play. So Rockford's power play just seems to have their number, except for last night. But Pat Dwyer is the assistant coach for the Wolves, and he is their PK coach as well. And Coach Warsofsky said the other day that they talk often about it and they want to be aggressive with it, and that they view it as a momentum change that's more important than even, say, the power play. So that is their thing that they work on. That's their aggressiveness, is also their identity. Well, like controlled emotional control. So I think why they're winning is because even though they're taking the penalties, they are able to maintain momentum and maybe even run away with the momentum when they're on the penalty kill. Yeah. So.
All right. So while Tomasino and Jarvis have been awesome, as we all expected, Dominic Bach has been very quiet with just 1 assist and 4 shots on goal. He's only played in 3 games, but for a dude who has a fantastic shot, him at least not hitting the goalie more often was surprising to me. He also hasn't played in their last 2 games, but he's still on the roster, but I mean, doesn't appear to be injured. Nothing stood out like that he would be missing time due to injury. Do you have any idea of what's going on with Dominic Bach, why he seems to be kind of underwhelming, why he's missed 2 games, anything at all?
Well, for that, I mean, from a stat standpoint, he has been kind of underwhelming. But his away from the puck game has been really good this season, which has allowed guys like Tomasino and Jarvis to flourish. Bach was on the line with Jarvis in the first game, and I think the second game, I want to say. And he created so much space for him to do his own thing. I don't think that there's anything wrong with Bach, why he's being sat, because they also sat Tanner Jeannot the other night, and he also has been doing really well. I wonder if part of it is stemming from the fact that when the WHL season starts, Jarvis has to go back. If the OHL season starts, Tomasino has to go back. And there's a few other guys on the team as well who will have to go back. So I think they're trying to get some playing time in for those guys so that that they're just ready to play. I mean, they're going to be ready to play in the OHL and the WHL because they're really good and they shouldn't be in the WHL to begin with. They're one of those players. Both of them are those kind of players that CBA rule with the NHL and the CHL just hurts both the team and the player. Or there are other players who could definitely do from being down there. So I think that's what, but back to your point, sorry. I think that is why Bach hasn't been playing, just because they're getting these young guys and doing what they can with them before they have to go.
And Elaine, before we pivot to the Iowa Wild, I did kind of want to comment on the Alex Galchenyuk trade and Warsofsky coming over from coming over to the Chicago Wolves essentially in their organization and everything. So, with the brother as the coach and one as a player, it's like, is this a better fit than maybe Galchenyuk playing for the Wolves this season?
I mean, honestly, I don't know. I love that Chicago has all these brothers. They have the Cotton brothers. Now they have the Warsofskys. And Nick Suzuki used to be with the Wolves, and his brother now plays with the Wolves. So it's just like this, I would call them like the brotherly love team, but that's Philadelphia's nickname. So we're not going to do that. But I don't, he hasn't, Warsofsky hasn't played much this year. I don't think he's played at all. I mean, Alex Galchenyuk, I've never been super impressed with him. I feel like there hasn't been a team that's been able to pull out what's within him. He's always on that cusp. Kind of reminds me of Sonny Milano a little bit, not the way they play, but that there's just something there and they can't get to it. And in a pandemic season, there's just not that time to try and pull that out of a player. So I think it was smart of the Canes to flip him again and then bring something home for Coach Warsofsky, because people aren't seeing their families this year. And honestly, I think that goes a long way. I think you can see that more players that are near their families are doing well. Look at Jack Roslovic, for example. He is thriving in Columbus, and he's in his hometown near his family. And there's other teams that are also experiencing that well with their players. So it should definitely be interesting once he starts to play, because I want to know what that dynamic's like. Like, how do you coach? How do you separate brother from coach? I know some people have coached their sons, it's like the same dynamic essentially. Like dad and coach are like the same, but brother and coach, I'm really excited. I'm just thrilled. I can't wait to see how that works out.
Yeah, and I mean Dave Warsofsky's no slouch. He's a veteran in the AHL for sure. I mean, going back to 2010, 11, playing with Providence there, after getting done at Boston University. So, it's not like, oh, it's a brothers thing. Let's just, we'll bring the brother
Right.
over and just, it's he's a solid player as well. So that definitely helps too, which, you more than know for sure. But yeah, leading in, let's jump over to the Iowa Wild for a few moments and let's talk about Gabe Dumont and Connor DeWer. They've been surprising offensive leaders for the Wild in this short season. Does this look like they've turned a corner and can sustain this, or is it just two regular guys getting hot and they'll come back down to earth soon? What do you think? I
hope that they are able to maintain it, because they are doing a lot for the Wild. They've kept them in games. Another guy that's kept him into the games as well is Joseph Cramarosa. He's showing that he's not just like I want to fight somebody kind of guy. He's actually being a very good veteran for these young guys as well. So between the three of them, I hope that they continue to be on that incline, or at least keep it going, because they haven't played some of these other teams as much yet, so they haven't gotten a whole feel of the Central quite yet. It is really nice to see them do well, because I feel like they've tried to do well in the past and it just hasn't clicked, and it's really clicking right now. Iowa also has another young team as well. Like, the Wolves are young, but Iowa also has another young team. But I feel like there's been a little bit of inconsistency on their team with who's on the roster and who's not, because the taxi squad a little bit more so. So I think that if they can actually get to stay playing in games, they will do well. But I'm cautiously optimistic about it, because it is the beginning of the season. Things are really going to pick up. And the question is, can they play in a very competitive game? Because all of these teams there's no love between any of these teams this season at all. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they can do in those high compete kind of games where it's constantly going, you know.
Definitely. For sure.
And I think we're going to see a lot of that too this season, where you see guys who you didn't expect just kind of show up and steal the spotlight for a little bit because of the length of the season and kind of the weird nature that it's being played under, where some guys are going to look fresh despite, you know, an insane layoff, and other guys are going to look like they have an insane layoff that they just came off of. But let's talk about the Wild defense here for a second. After a disastrous opening game, the Wild defense has been locking it down, giving up a whole 5 shots on goal from the inner slot in the 3 games since that opener in Texas, where they gave up 6. Now, we didn't expect much from Texas or Rockford this season, but Chicago has offensive firepower. They generated 27 shots from the inner slot in the first 5 games. Do you think the Wild can continue to control the area in front of the net, or does Chicago continue to create these chances in this Saturday-Sunday series we have between the two?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that first game, I don't know what Texas team that was that came out, because we have not seen them play like that since then. I don't know if they just gave everything in that one game. It was really incredible to see, and I thought they would bring that same energy to the next game, and they did not. And the Wild were all over that. So if it will, this weekend, it's imperative that they stick to the Wolves like glue, like they did to Texas when Texas started to kind of fumble around. I feel like that's the only way that they'll be able to really control the game, and they have to do it right away, because once you score on the Wolves are like, oh, that's nice. We don't like that. And then they start running through the playbook and running through and just start going for it. And they draw up these beautiful plays with beautiful passing. And Iowa doesn't have that level of passing. The quick release, they don't even have to, they just have their stick just right. It's gliding along the ice. Someone passes it to them. It's kind of like not ping pong, like an arcade pinball machine, kind of. That's kind of what their passing is like. Iowa doesn't have that level of passing. Now, if Iowa can keep them from getting through the neutral zone as fast as they do, like, don't let anyone go on a breakaway. They're so great. The Wolves are so great on the breakaway. So if they can get them to not get out of that neutral zone, or they kind of clog it up enough that they have to muscle through it a little bit more, then I think Iowa will be fine. Because the Wolves are so hot, and I think they really buy into what Coach Warsawski is saying. He's like, you're not 2 separate teams. You're one team. We're the Wolves. Like, sometimes he speaks and I'm like, wow, I would run through a brick wall for you. Like, and I'm just a writer. Like, and I wonder if his players feel that same level of energy and compete that he has, because I think it's going to take a lot for them to have that misstep this season. And so Iowa needs to be perfect, absolutely perfect, to be able to really get that edge on them. It's tough because Chicago is so good this season.
They are, and it's funny because I remember I watched that first Texas game, and this was after our preview where we were like, yeah, I don't think Texas is going to be that good. I'm like, oh, great, this is great. And at least I'm like, well, I only had to suffer one game because they've not been great since.
Right.
Which is somewhat unfortunate because, goaltender of the podcast, Thomas Scholl, has done a good effort there for them, but he has not gotten any help from in front of them. But if Iowa too, I mean, as we talked about with Chicago, like if Iowa can get the power play going, like it's not going to look like what it did last year. There's no, Sam Hannis, there's no Gary Mayhew, so they don't have that firepower. Sokolov has looked good at times shooting for them, but they're going to need to make the most of those opportunities because Chicago certainly seems hell-bent on giving them power play opportunities.
Yes. Well, and here's the other thing. Because they've played Rockford so much, the Wolves, they are so prepared for people to enter that crease, to crash the net, they are prepared for it. Most of the games that they've played this season, because they also played Grand Rapids. So Grand Rapids is a huge crash the net team. If the Wild start playing back and try to shoot shots off from the point or from like the face-off circles and have someone sneak in to get rebounds, I feel like that would be more beneficial to them, because the Wolves are already ready for the crease battles, for the little kerfluffles in front of the net. Like, they're ready for all of that. But if they can make Beck warm, the goalie, use his brain a little bit more than he's used to by trying to calculate, is that puck coming high, low? Is it going to get a rise or not? I think they can have the edge on that. So they have to play, I guess what I'm saying is Wild have to play their game instead of trying to play the Wolves game and try to beat the Wolves at their own game. They need to play their own game perfectly so that they can beat the Wolves.
Absolutely. Cece, do you have anything else there?
Oh, well, I mean, it's just Chicago. I mean, we predicted it before the season began, is that, having that dual affiliation is really going to help. I mean, obviously the two other teams that have them as well, but Chicago was the one that we were really kind of high on, coming into the season, with getting these prospects from both, both the Carolina Hurricanes and the
Nashville Predators.
God, I mean, okay, so it doesn't help that the Wolves, already have a new affiliation for this year, but the fact that they took on the Milwaukee Admirals, players and Nashville's prospects and everything, it's like, it's hard to keep it straight sometimes. But
right. Well, and Milwaukee last year Milwaukee was like the favorite to win the Calder Cup last year.
One of them, yeah.
One of them, yeah. So he was getting a chance to work with a top-notch farm team right there as well. And Carolina was already no joke. So, and yeah, I mean, they got lucky with that dual affiliate because they did dual affiliate before and they were all right. They didn't come out guns blazing. They did make it to the playoffs that first year that they were dual affiliated, and was it like 2017, 18, I think it was. But it was a different feel to it. Different coach, different feel. This year it's just different. I can't explain it. There's like this different air around them and what they want. And I wonder how much of it is because some teams are just focusing on development. Some teams are focusing on winning, and he's focusing on both. So I think that is what making them so deadly, because he's like, I really want these guys to develop, and I want them to develop well. And we're also going 30-0 this year. He said that in the press conference, the preseason press conference, like they're going 30-0. So you have a guy who's very focused on development, but he's like, but we're also going to win. Like, we're not throwing winning out the window. So.
Well, I think one thing that he has the benefit of too sometimes when you have prospects that come to the AHL, you don't get the, 10th overall picks and, bona fide first rounders who it's like, you could be the worst developmental coach ever and they'll still succeed. Like, they're just that good. You usually end up in the AHL with guys who are second and third round picks who have edges to smooth out before they move on. And it becomes that kind of balance of, okay, how much do I put them in, top 6 minutes, even if they're struggling? Whereas like you have Tomasino and Jarvis and Bach, and I mean, you could throw them anywhere and they're going to be fine. They're that good. Like, you don't have to worry about, trying to balance like, okay, we need to win this game, so maybe I don't put the guy who's struggling in those minutes, but that's not the case here. I think one of the other things too that's interesting is, this is somewhat speculative, is there were rumors that Carolina wanted to move to a different affiliate because they wanted to take a more hands-off approach with some of their prospects where they weren't doing daily management. And I think that's one of the reasons you don't see dual affiliates anymore, is so many teams want this hands-on approach of, your job here is to, like, you're going to play a watered down version of our system in the NHL. So when we call guys up, they don't have to go through 3 days of boot camp trying to figure out what we're supposed to do. They've been doing it all season. And with dual affiliates, you can't have two teams pulling, no, you're going to play this forecheck. No, you're going to play this. Like, that doesn't happen. It's one, but like with this dual affiliate now, and Carolina allegedly taking more of a hands-off approach. He has all of the good things of the depth and the players and the picks and the prospects to stack his roster, but doesn't have this two masters of strategy to try and serve here.
Right. So he actually kind of discussed that with us about how that works. And he did say that they already have similar systems, which I can say is true, based on the fact that the Monsters last season played both teams a lot, the Admirals and the Checkers. So the systems are very much the same. The way they are on the forecheck, the way they are with face-offs. I mean, just so much is so similar, and it's what makes them deadly, to be honest. And also, he is always talking with the GM of the Admirals still. So like the Admirals are not completely out of this this conversation, like they're still involved with what's going on with their players. And they also are always talking to the GMs and coaches from the two affiliate teams. And it just seems like everyone is very much like, they're not talking all the time, but they're very open to what's supposed to be going on. I do wonder what it's like in that room. Like, do they go and talk to one coach and then another one? Because, obviously those two teams have to see each other sometime eventually. So, he's very much embraced it. And I think that's what's also helping. If you embrace the change and embrace it, and you can get everyone to sit down and talk as one, I think that's pretty cool. I don't know why. It was such a weird, that whole situation with them changing affiliates was so weird to me, though, because they were so close. People in Charlotte it's not that far away to go see the Hurricanes play. So people would come down and watch their prospects, or go up and watch the prospects play up there. It's very similar to how it was with Cleveland and the Jackets. So it's such a weird thing. And I wish we knew more about the breakdown of that relationship, because it's kind of sad when you think about it, for the fans at least.
I mean, it's one of those where I feel like, we're going to have a 30 for 30 in 2026, which is the fictional year. But that's how this is going to come out, because I don't think we're going to get anything anytime soon. Like Don Waddell is going to be, retired +5. And
right.
Then he's going to, write a book about it, and it'll be an anecdote in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Anyway, Cece, do you have anything more to add, or do we want to get some picks in here?
I mean, just the fact that, I think Chicago, like Elaine said, like the affiliates that are feeding into the Wolves, with the similar styles. I think an antithesis to that is Utica, because you've got Vancouver now sending prospects to the Manitoba Moose, because you don't have to work with that international boundary, as originally Vancouver was going to be the second, Vancouver obviously is Utica's affiliate normally under normal circumstances, but then you also have, the dual affiliation coming in and everything like that. So the fact that, the St. Louis Blues had to hitch their wagon to Utica as well. It's just, it's the fact that it's kind of a perfect storm for Chicago, in the sense that, Syracuse, obviously, Tampa Bay and Florida, they can both ship prospects up to Syracuse as well. But I feel like of the three teams that are doing dual affiliations, like we said in the season preview, Sean, Chicago, and they're proving it with their 5-0-0 start. Chicago is the benefactor of, the best chemistry and the best prospects so far. But we'll see come mid-March, when the CHL gets all of their leagues figured out, not just the WHL, but the OHL and the QMJHL. We'll see. But
I don't believe it.
You don't believe it?
I will not believe that a CHL season is happening until literally they are dropping the puck on it. Will not believe it.
We'll see. But yeah, let's go to picks. Let's defer to our guest and have her give first dibs on, who she thinks between Iowa and Chicago. Is it, a sweep, or is it going to be split games, or what's it going to be?
I'm going to say it's a sweep, just because they're hot and they want to stay hot, and the desire there is to stay hot. I don't know. I don't have a pulse on Iowa's desire, or what the coach wants, or anything right now. So I'm just doubling down. It's gonna be Chicago. They're gonna sweep, and at this rate, they're also gonna go 30-0. So
That'd be a sight to behold. Sean, what are your picks, bud?
I am also taking Chicago to sweep. I think Chicago, despite a lot of just strange signs of, a bad penalty kill that continues to get work, even though it isn't clicking quite as well as it should. I'm going to stick with Chicago because their 5-on-5 game has been spectacular. And Iowa, while I think that they're going to be somewhat competitive in these games, their effort in the series against Texas was very inconsistent, and they definitely gave what I still hold, I double down on, was not a good Texas team, and still is not a good Texas team. They gave them multiple opportunities to stay in those games, even though they pulled away in two of them. I'm sticking on Chicago here. I think both games are going to be in the neighborhood of 5-3.
Okay. Well, I guess that leaves me, and not to be a contrarian, but I'm going to be. I'm going to say that Iowa gives Chicago their first loss of the year. And they're not going to go 30-0. Sorry, Elaine. Sorry, Coach Warsofsky. But I know you have no emotional attachment to the Wolves and them going 30-0. But I think the fact, and like I said, I'll be the contrarian, and if you guys are right, then I'll eat my words. But the fact that Iowa can bounce back from an 8-4 loss, I mean, I don't care how crappy the Texas team is. The fact that they could respond and then take the next game, I feel like they've got it within them that if Chicago takes that first game, that Iowa can come back and take that next game. Now, if Iowa takes that first game, then I think the opposite could be true, and Chicago could take that next game. But I'll say they split the series, whether it's Chicago winning on the top or on the front end, or Iowa winning on the front end. I think it goes 1-1.
yeah, if Iowa wins that first game, we will get to see how the Wolves handle coming back to play another game within a short turnaround, and how well they play mentally. Like, it's a mental thing.
Sure.
We'll see. We'll get to see that. That would be interesting. That would be interesting. That'd be an interesting storyline to write about.
There you go. You got an article idea there. So,
Right.
Elaine, thanks for
Two things here quickly.
Oh, sure.
Number one, I just pulled up the model, and even though I haven't updated rosters in a little bit, it has Chicago as a 55% favorite in both games because I haven't plugged in a starter for goaltending in that. But Chicago, a pretty healthy favorite. I also want to point out it's a lot easier to respond to a game you lose 8-3, because then you can't go back into the locker room or whatever after the game and be like, we did all right, we gave a good, like, that you have to respond tomorrow. I feel like those are easier games to bounce back out of, as opposed to like when you get a 4-3 overtime loss. It's like, we were so close, we'll get them to, like, that's a much easier one to feel content about. Whereas when you get waxed,
Yeah,
you got to come back the next night.
That's fair. That's completely fair. And, I can see Chicago waxing Iowa, though. That's the thing. Like, I can see them, putting up 6 goals, 7 goals on them, and, and then having to say, okay, we got to get our butt in gear. We don't want another Texas situation, or we want another Texas situation where we would respond. But yeah, but that's true. When you get waxed, it's a lot easier to, say, okay, let's put that one behind us and respond, as opposed to 3-2 overtime loss or something like that, and to come back and be like, all right, let's keep it close, and we'll do that. So
the drive for that is a little bit more is different, because when you have those close games, your energy is kind of out of control, and you're all about the revenge, because you're like, oh, we were so close, and then that's when mistakes happen and discipline goes out the door. But in those big ones, you're like, okay, well, we did a lot wrong. There's a lot we need to work on.
Right,
This falls on us, not on them or the refs or anything like that. So yeah, you're right. Like, it's definitely a different kind of feel to it.
yeah, for sure. So with that in mind, Elaine's got a Chicago sweep. Sean's got a Chicago sweep. I've got a 1-for-1. Chicago and Iowa. And that'll do it for our Central Division portion of the show. Elaine, you can go find her work at fullpresshockey.com/AHL. She's covering all things Central Division this year. So stay tuned. She's got little Zoom snippets, Zoom notes. That's a new series that she started with Chicago Wolves. She's got Cleveland Monsters coming up as well. So stay tuned for that. And Elaine, once again, thank you for joining the program.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks. We'll see you around. Sound good?
No, yes.
Oh, no.
I'm kidding. It sounds great.
Okay, sounds good. I was going to say, I hope your time here wasn't that horrible where you said no, but hey, thanks for coming on, Elaine. Appreciate it. Bye-bye. All right. Well, hey, that's the Central Division. We're going to take a quick break. We'll jump into the Pacific Division. We'll talk about the San Jose Tucson series that's coming up this weekend. And we'll say, what in the world is going on with the Ontario Reign? Stay tuned. All right. And we are back. Thanks to Elaine Shercliffe for joining the program and talking a little bit about the Chicago Wolves and Iowa Wild and any other Central Division team that may have come up. So last but not least, we have made our way and gone west, young man, and talking about the Pacific Division for sure. And San Jose and Tucson was going to be the weekend series that we were going to cover. But as we were just about to record, the news broke that 3-game series is not going to happen. Yay, COVID. Yay, COVID-19 protocols. Hey, they're being safe. Safety is paramount here. So, but hey, four games. San Jose has had postponed in a row now. The 3 versus Tucson and then 1 against Texas. That kind of takes precedence on a different level because of the winter storms that are occurring in Texas right now. I mean, holy crow, you're trying to conserve power. A lot of people without power. So understandable why that game was postponed. And then you put 3 more on top of that. And San Jose is not going to be playing games for what we're supposed to be scheduled games. So,
and to be clear, like, we're frustrated because we had prepped a lot for that portion of it, and
yes.
B, we're not frustrated at the teams for canceling. Like, that's inevitable. I'd rather them be safe than us get to talk more about them, obviously. But just that, we can't seem to ever get a control on this thing. Like, it just seems like at every turn, we think we've got it figured out, and it just rears its ugly head once more. So
it does.
Glad the protocols and stuff like that are in place. Hopefully they're keeping guys safe. But it is frustrating, even on our end as our silly podcast. But let's talk about Colorado, Ontario, and San Diego. We got a nice round tree of games here. Colorado looking to reload after an 0-2-1 start. Cece, what is going on over there in Colorado?
Well, Sean, first and foremost, they didn't start out of the gate very well because they had, 8 or 9 guys. I don't know how the Avalanche swung it because, 4 to 6 guys on the taxi squad, but 8 or 9 guys, like starters that were supposed to start with the Eagles on opening night. And then the day of or the day before, TJ Tynan, Mika Salamaki, Sheldon Dries, Jason Megna, those forwards, those are a good amount of your starting forwards. Kyle Burrows, Jacob McDonald, Dan Renouf, Dennis Gilbert. Those are 4 of your starting D-men, top 2 pairings. And netminder Peyton Jones. Peyton Jones, after the fact, he did start the opener. So, that occurred later. But those 8 guys, not on the Eagles squad when you had them in training camp, you were preparing for them. And so the Eagles went in and, had to kind of tinker with their lines. So a lot of second and third pairing guys are now first line guys, and a lot of fourth line guys are now bumped up, and a lot of replacement level guys are now playing on the third and fourth line. So
not great, Bob.
Crow. Not great, Bob. No, sir.
So when you're pulling depth guys to suddenly fill top 6 roles, that usually doesn't go bad. But how has that worked for the Eagles so far?
You know what? I'm surprised that they're playing in these games as close as they have. Their first 3 games have been 1-goal affairs. So, they've been hanging in there. I mean, San Diego obviously is undefeated, one of the handful of undefeated teams in the Pacific Division thus far. But yeah, the Eagles looked pretty good. They did looked like a club that was missing a lot of its top guys. They you got to build chemistry, and you know, it's just a little rough. So it's as you would expected. But nevertheless, Colorado, they had to step on San Diego and were more aggressive on the forecheck in the first period than the goals were. So I did notice that in the season opener. Unfortunately, they did let off the gas in the second and third periods, and a lot of their rookies made some unforced turnovers. Granted, yeah, some vets did as well, but of course, you're a rookie, you're used to playing in the CHL and the juniors, and then you come into the pros and you're playing against grown ass men. Yes, different game for sure. So the Eagles did generate some good chances. I noticed on the power play that they were really good about those passes across Royal Road. They were really trying to push the goaltender, Stellars, really trying to push him into that lateral movement. But unfortunately, they just couldn't convert a whole lot of those power play chances, even though they peppered Stellars on the power play quite a bit in that season opener. But, aside from that, like I said, they kept it close. It was a 3-2 game. They did score the first goal in the game, so that definitely helped. But then they went back and forth, and San Diego just came out on top with a goal halfway through the third period.
Yeah, and I mean, they have such a top heavy roster too. It's nuts. It's kind of like when you watch someone play the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. You can only limit them so much. Like,
oh yeah.
The other thing too, like especially you talked about young defensemen coming out. It's probably a different system that they played. You can try and simulate game action as much as you want in practice, but there is always going to be a different pace, a different feel, and trying to kind of know where guys are supposed to be. Like when we were talking about Binghamton earlier, that seemed to be one of the things too, where like Riley Walsh is just throwing pucks to the guys on the other team willy-nilly. So that is something that's going to happen. How are the young guys doing? Tell me about these children's.
These chins. Yes. Let me tell you about some of the rookies for the Eagles. So first and foremost, what I noticed in the first game, Miles Gendrum, he only played that first game, but he and Jean-Luc Foudy were making some scary passes and giving up some rough turnovers. I alluded to that in the last question that you asked me, but especially Foudy. I mean, he has got a lot of raw talent, and you can definitely see that. And, Colorado coach Greg Cronin pregame said that the Avalanche wanted to get Foudy as much time on the ice as possible. They wanted to cultivate that. They wanted to harvest that raw talent. Calder Farmstead, no pun intended. But but yes, so they wanted Foudy on the ice. They put him on the top power play line too, which I found kind of surprising. He was a top line forward, top power play forward, and he's got the talent, but again, he was just kind of forcing passes. He was trying to be, I'll get into that here in a second, but Charlie Gerard, I want to talk about him a little bit because he showed some impressive forechecking and physical back checking. Gerard, another rookie coming in, a free agent signing from college, not in the junior system like Foudy, but Gerard, really impressive on both his forecheck and his back check and keeping up with the speed of the professional game. Really impressed me there. Back to Foudy. He's got good breakout speed. He really showcased it. A problem that he had was that he would rush into the zone and then get swarmed by defenders and then try to get a little too cute with the puck. He would either try to deke around the defenders, or he would, he would make an errant pass and they would, 2 or 3 defenders closing in on him when he rushes in too quick. And he would just, instead of, maybe curling around the back of the net, like he would just kind of stop and panic. Like he was really hesitant on the offensive side of the puck. So, he definitely remedied that a lot better in the third game of the season against Ontario. I thought his skills were coming a little bit more together at the professional level. But yeah, that first game, he was a little shaky, and you could, again, tell the raw talent was there, but it just needed to be polished and refined quite a bit.
Yeah, and I mean, some of that too is probably just getting used to the speed of the game. That's usually the biggest thing that steps out, guys, is not like they don't forget how to stick handle or to shoot, but like life comes at you much faster.
Mm-hmm.
So that's young guys. That's the Utes. Any veteran skaters stick out to you?
Oh, absolutely. Gosh, one of the guys that's really stepped up is Ryan Wagner. I mean, he has taken the top 6 role with gusto. I mean, a guy that bounced between the Grizzlies and the Eagles last year, and his time up with the Grizzlies, he really impressed him, or from the Grizzlies with the Eagles, rather. He really impressed the Eagles. You know, he was scoring game-winning goals against Milwaukee, one of the best teams in the league. So it's like, you know, he really stepped up his game. He leads the team in points with 2 goals and 1 assist. I know that's not saying much over 3 games played, but man, he's played physical. He laid out Cameron Gauntz versus Ontario. Yeah, he knocked Gauntz on his ass. So, you know, he's and 5'8". He's 5'8", 185 pounds. He plays so much bigger than that. I was beside myself when I found out that he was just a sawed-off little fella like me, sawed-off little stocky fella. So, yeah, it's just Ryan Wagner has done nothing but impress me. And like I said, there's a reason he leads the team in scoring, even though it's after only 3 games played. He's playing a physical game. He's on the goal that he did score. Gosh, I want to say it was against Ontario. Well, it's inconsequential. What he did, he drives into the zone. He draws 3 defenders. He toe drags through those defenders and risks a shot for a goal. And it was against San Diego, actually. That's right. I remember it now. It was against San Diego. So he draws 3 defenders, toe drags through them, and risks the shot right by Solars. It was a phenomenal effort. Like, Wagner is playing lights out for the fact that, again, the top 4 forwards, or at least some of the top 4 forwards for the Eagles organization, were called up to the taxi squad. So kudos to Ryan Wagner. He's showing out.
Kind of reminds me when we were talking about Lehigh Valley and Max Willman earlier, just a guy that's done, you know, some time in the ECHL and has decided that this is his shot and he's going to do everything he can for it. You know, hat tip to Ryan Wagner. Now, I always say this. I don't want the Penn State Alumni Association to strip me of my member status. So please tell me about Peyton Jones.
Of course. Yes. And I'll talk about Peyton Jones and his start in the season opener. I'll talk about Trent Miner and his start against the Ontario Reign on Wednesday. But yes, we'll start with the Penn State alum, the Nittany Lion himself, Peyton Jones. I thought he did good for the young defense that was in front of him, and not just young, but kind of the ECHL, AHL, I'm thinking of Matt Apt, so yeah, it's just either young or just kind of a fringe talent on the defensive side of the puck there. And, Jones held his own. I mean, there was a number of chances where, the defense, there was 2 power play goals against Jones. So again, when your penalty kill is in the toilet right now, like Colorado's is, they're, towards the bottom of the barrel. Unfortunately, I think there's somewhere like 22nd, 24th out of 27 active teams currently. Yeah. Not good. Not good. Power play is the same, but we'll get into that here in a second. But yeah, their penalty kill kind of sucked. San Diego was 2 for 5 on the night. 40% is not a good thing to give up in any game for that matter. But Peyton Jones looked good. He didn't get peppered with shots per se, but he stopped 35 of 38 pucks in the season opener, and yeah, he was a little aggressive. I noticed he liked to dive out of the crease onto the puck when, pressure would come in, not just kind of cover the puck like Trent Miner did a lot against Ontario, but Peyton Jones just straight up dove. Like, he would dive and just cover the puck as best as he can. And I know we talked about it a little bit in this the season preview. Athleticism can only get you so far. And Peyton Jones is a great athlete, but when you're using that athletic ability to make such a desperation move, and he did it a number of times, that was kind of the frustrating thing. It's like, dude, you have got to chill out and either let your defenseman collect that puck or let the puck come to you. Don't dive on that, because you might take a stick, you might, take a leg to the face or something. You're leaving yourself exposed. And miss the puck. Yeah, that could be it too, where you just let it go by. Thank God he never did. But when you're that aggressive, it's going to come back to bite you in the ass.
Let me ask you one question here about Peyton Jones, because there's one thing I noticed from his time at Penn State. You could always tell how his mind was going. How was he playing the puck? Like, when the puck would get dumped in, would he go out, get it, and try it? Did he try any stretch passes? Anything like that?
Not that I noticed. He seemed pretty, surprisingly for letting up 3 goals, he seemed pretty calm and collected. It wasn't like he let him up in rapid succession or anything. So it's like, yeah, he played the puck pretty well. He wasn't like obviously aside from diving on it, a few times, but in regards to, passing it to defensemen or anything, he'd go behind the net and collect it and,
but nothing. He wouldn't try anything outside of the normal. Just maybe chip it around the wall or anything like that. Because I know Peyton Jones is someone that when he's feeling it, he's gonna maybe take some stretch pass shots, like not putting it around guys or anything, but like he is not going to just stop the puck behind the net and just leave it there, or, chip it 5 feet. Like that's a dude who can make accurate passes into the neutral zone. And I've seen when he's feeling it, like he will absolutely take a shot doing that when it's appropriate. But I was just curious because that's one of the big signs for me of like Peyton Jones, he feeling it tonight. He made that stretch pass in the neutral zone to jumpstart a breakout or whatever. That's Peyton Jones we want to see.
He must not have been feeling it as much because obviously AHL debut, maybe nerves got a little bit on the side because I didn't notice any of that. So
I mean that's fair too. They're also like it's not a moment that pops up every game where you have that opportunity. You got to play the pucks that come to you, but like just something little note to tuck away in there. Tell me about Trent Miner. We don't want to have him feel left out.
Right. Trent Miner. What big thing I noticed about him? He tracks the puck really well. Like even when the defense is collapsing and everything, his poise is noticeable in his body language. Like he's just, dialed in. He's not coming too far out of the crease. He's cutting down on angles. He's got his shoulders set, towards the puck, and he's aware. He's got that sense of awareness, and he tracks the puck really well. Let's see. He stopped 37 of 39 shots. So I mean, yeah, I know the Eagles letting up a lot of chances. Like I said, young defense, just still working out the kinks and the chemistry and everything like that. The laps on the defense, man. I mean, it obviously with the goals and everything, it kind of leaves the goalies out to dry a little bit, but obviously it's not a 6 or 7 goal game. So it's, could be a lot worse. The fact that Trent Miner stopped 37 of 39 pucks, it's a testament to his style of play and everything. And, he didn't overreact too much. It was quite, the goals that Miner let in. I think, gosh, I'm trying to recall the Ontario game now. It all blends together, but it wasn't like they were glaring mistakes. Like it was either a lapse in defense or it was just a really well-placed shot by the shooter. So, I think Ontario converted a power play as well against the Eagles. So again, their penalty kill kind of stinks. So yeah, Miner did good. He was very, I think more than serviceable in goal. And in a lot of ways it's like, okay, this kid's only 20 years old yet. Like I said, he's got poise. He's got, a coolness about him that, I think I saw a little bit of that from Peyton Jones as well. And I think when you're young and collected like that, you can play the pro game and do fairly well, even in spite of a shoddy defense.
All right. So give me, let's wrap up Colorado nicely here. Give me some major takeaways from the 3 games that Colorado's got under their belt so far.
Okay, so the biggest storyline, I know I've been harping on the penalty kill for the Eagles, but their power play has been anemic. So aside from a 5-on-3 goal from captain Greg Patterin to start off the year, Colorado hasn't found another tally on the man advantage thus far. So they had that goal to open up the season. They're 1 for 14. So that puts the Eagles down at 23rd out of 27 active teams currently, 7.1% conversion rate. I think that's going to be a problem. But again, Tynan, Salamaki, Kiefer Sherwood, you get those guys in there, maybe throw one of them on the power play. Yeah.
All right. That sounds like there's at least some hope. And special teams too are kind of one of those things. They get lumped in with, like I said, in the end of our season previews, where it's like, yeah, defense doesn't really get settled until like a month in, but there is no time for that in this season. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Nobody got time for that.
There too, we usually see them not be very efficient early in the ongoing because there's still, wrinkles being worked out and stuff. All right, let's close the book here on Colorado. Ontario is 1-4-1, CC. That was, I mean, like we thought they would struggle a little bit early on, with basically them having a brand new team, young first-time coach. The Black and Silver Bandits are basically all getting carded at bars. Like it's a very young team, and we expected some growing pains, but man, I didn't expect them to be, going into the 5th game of the season looking for that first W. Like I thought they would maybe perform a little bit better on paper, But is this a case of, the tape not telling the whole tale, or are they 1-4 and 1 bad?
Well, they're not 1-4 and 1 bad, I don't think, because a lot of their games were close. And I mean, they've gone from like a strictly like power, like bruising team like they were last year. I'm looking at you, Boko Omama, even though he's still on the team, but they've moved away from that and they've embraced the modern game. Like they're not the Wild West, stereotypical, Pacific Division team anymore. They've got those tough guys. Like I said, Imama's still on the team when he's not, called up or anything like that. But to have, the fastest guy on the team is Nick Halloran. Like, he's what's that?
Really? That, like, if I had to pick, I have not gotten the pleasure of getting to watch too much of their tape yet. So I'm surprised by that, just because I know the caliber of other skaters they have. I would not have picked Nick Halloran, but I trust you if you tell me he's the fastest on the team. But like, that says something about him.
So, I heard Ontario's broadcaster comment on that, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna watch this and see if it checks out. And you know what? It's noticeable. Like it's tangible and you can see it. I mean, yeah, granted, like a lot of the young guys, I mean, your Quentin Byfields, Arthur Kaliev, Akil Thomas, Sam Fagamo, Tyler Madden, you've got all of those guys that are young and they're fast. And, but yeah, Halloran really sticks out.
If you were going to name them, you need to call them by their proper name, CC.
Ah, yes. The Black and Silver Bandits.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes. No worries. So the Black and Silver Bandits, I mean, it's a youth movement. It's a speed movement. Ontario has had to just turn everything on its head and, basically shift their game style and completely, turn everything around. And the free agent pickups and, Mark Alt and Cameron Gauntz, those guys, big defensive acquisitions. So you're going to have a little bit of, a little bit of a veteran presence, a little bit of a tinkering there, but it's just, you can move from a power game to a speed game. There's going to be some adjustments and some chemistry that needs to develop.
That's very fair. I would have thought too that they would have at least found more success on the special teams, especially on the power play. Like when you put that many just, crazily talented and not overlappingly talented, like it's not, they're all packed, you have all the Patrick Laine skill sets and no, playmakers, no net front guys. Like they have a good spread of skills there. What's going on the power play?
Well, entering Wednesday's game, they were 2 for 22. They picked up 4 chances and a power play goal against Colorado. So now they're at 3 for 26, 11.5% conversion rate. A little better than Colorado, but still 21st out of 27 active teams. And yeah, the struggle is real. You have all that firepower and you would think it'd be a little bit better, but for some reason they just can't make it work and can't make a click for, the other however many 20 plus times that they didn't convert.
For like, from your eyes, did it look like they're doing the right things and they're just missing little pieces? Or does it look, I mean, when you tell me it's 11.5%, in my mind, I'm picturing, basically the chicken running around the ice with its head cut off. Like that should not be happening. But like when I was watching Lehigh Valley and their power play, that's not had the success, like you can see good parts of it there. Is that what you see? Or would you categorize it more as like, this is a lot of just not clicking, a lot of not chemistry, and it all looks bad? Or is there, they're 85% there and they just need to find that last 15?
Well, I think the power play and the 5-on-5 is kind of a microcosm. I think it has to ultimately do with passing. The passing wasn't as crisp. Like Ontario became a better team right before my eyes. Like I couldn't believe, like they kind of started a little slow, out of the gate. They looked a little lost in the offensive zone to start the game, but it's like it finally clicked. Like after, in the 6th game, like the passes became more crisp, the tape, especially like in the 3rd period, it was so noticeable. It's like a light switch just turned on. Like that's the most noticeable thing, whether it's 5-on-5 or the power play. It's like their passing wasn't connecting. Like they just weren't making the tape to tape passes. And in the third period, it was much more noticeable than at the beginning of the game. And so to suffer from that for the first 5 games and to go, 0-4-1, and for it to finally pick up and you to get the victory and to get over that hump, you got a bunch of young guys, a bunch of new guys, and everybody's starting to gel and trying to figure out each other's proclivities and, just their idiosyncrasies and all that. Let me insert another big word in there if I can. No, that's fine. But yeah, just to try and figure out their quirks and everything. When the passing comes together and you really start to get to know your teammates in that regard, and you can anticipate, I think anticipation and transition, ding, 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 transition. There you go. I think that makes a world of difference. And that's exactly what I noticed. And I'm glad you brought that up.
All right. So they did finally pull a W off here. Give me some details on that. Tell me what you saw in their first, better late than never win for Robo, first win for a lot of the Black and Silver Bandits, first win for Ontario in this gong show of a year in the Irony division. Tell me all about it.
Well, hey, Wednesday's game, like I said, I mean, it wasn't like a dominating complete 60-minute effort, but I think it was a growing 60-minute effort. Like you could tell they gained their footing. They started the game, a little shaky, but they just, progressively got better exponentially throughout the game. And again, it was like 2 different teams by the end of the game. The previous 2 games that they played kind of were accentuated with just one strong period, and the rain, they definitely remedied that against the Eagles. Kaliev looked strong on the forecheck early, but the rest of the team started the game a little weak, with both offensive and defensive zone turnovers. Again, when your passing is shoddy, that's bound to happen. Plus, they looked a little gun shy in the physical sense of the game. They didn't, they didn't put the body on a whole lot of people to start the game. Again, it wasn't like a glaring mistake. It didn't come back to bite him in the butt. I still counted as serviceable because, that it didn't end up in any Colorado goals. So there's that. To capitalize on that 5-on-3 power play towards the end of the first period, I think was huge. Again, it was nothing but a morale boost. It just opened up the floodgates. They carried the momentum into the second period. I think they had 3 shots in the first 30 seconds of the second period. Yeah, they just started off gangbusters and kind of knocked Colorado on their heels. Matthew Villalta, that's hard to say. Matthew Villalta, he stood tall. I mean, in net for Ontario. He stopped a lot of solid chances, both on 5-on-5 and on the penalty kill. And aside from that last-minute goal that ruined his shutout, he was dialed in. He even got a little bit of puck luck. The Eagles, they missed an open net a few times. The Reigns defense, again, when you've got veterans like Alt and Gauntz kind of leading the way, you're going to get those sticks in front. You're going to get those deflections out of the way. And, so limiting Villalta's shots on goal load to 29 compared to forcing 39 shots on goals like the offense did against the Eagles. I mean, that didn't hurt either. You limit anytime you can get a guy below 30 shots on goal and kind of limit his load and spread it out like that Ontario Reign did. I mean, that's taking care of your goaltender, and you can't, obviously Netmarner's not going to complain about that.
Absolutely not. And it sounds like that's a pretty good breakdown there for Ontario. So let's move to, I think, the team that we all have just like, yeah, they're good. The Gulls. Doug Gulls. San Diego just clicking on all cylinders. They're 6-0-0. I mean, how did we get here, Cece? Why are they so good?
Well, you may find yourself living in Irvine, California. You may find yourself playing with a top-heavy roster. You may find yourself at the top of the Pacific Division, and you may ask yourself, how did I get here? That's a little David Byrne channeling there for Talking Heads. You're welcome.
How did I get here?
How did I get here?
This is not my life.
Same as it ever was. Vinny Lettieri saying, this is not my Hartford Wolfpack. No, but but I digress. Like you said, they are so damn top heavy. This team has so much talent, and they've just put it all together and gelled so quickly. It's amazing to watch these guys and how just, it was the Eagles' first game. I think it was the Gulls' 5th game maybe fourth, but yeah, that was the fourth game, I think. So yeah, the goals were already starting to click, and let me put it this way. So they didn't let their one and only power play goal allowed all season, the Greg Pattern goal that I mentioned earlier, Colorado's first goal of this young season, they did not allow that to rattle them. Like San Diego has allowed one power play goal in, I want to say, 23 chances.
Oh boy.
Yeah. There are, I think, are fourth. Yeah, they're fourth in the league right now. So they are killing it. No pun intended, on the penalty kill, rather. They are killing it on the penalty kill because, yeah, that was their only goal allowed, and they didn't allow it to rattle them because, their penalty kill is so good. They were composed even as the Eagles carried that lead into the second. It was only a 1-goal lead, not a big deal. They responded on special teams. They scored 2 power play goals of their own. They go up 2-1. Gosh, even with the Eagles equalizing that tally in the third, like that Ryan Wagner goal I told you about, that was the equalizer in the third. San Diego responded. They had relentless forecheck, and they pushed him in the final frame to that go-ahead goal. Guess who got it? Vinny Lettieri, 2-goal night for him. To have vets like Sam Carrick and Andrew Podorowski and Trevor Carrick and Vinny Lettieri and Andrew Agazzino, and you combine that with a wonderkin like Trevor Zegras, I mean, you're spoiled for riches. What else can you say?
Yeah. I mean, Trevor Zegras is going to do Trevor Zegras things. Please tell me about Trevor Zegras things.
Ah, yes. The much hyped prospect living up to said hype. Yeah. I mean, he took the, I mean, yeah, that's it. I'll just leave it at that. We won't go into any in-depth analysis. We'll just say Trevor Zegras is really, really good. No, I'm kidding. Of course we're going to analyze it. The man took home the first CCM or the AHL CCM Player of the Week award. There's a reason he got it. 2 goals and an assist against Bakersfield on opening night, 4-1 win, then scoring the game-winning goal and adding another assist the following night in a 4-3 win. When your first 2 games involve multi-point nights, and then the second game has you got a game-winning goal accredited to you. Granted, the Condors are a bit of a flaming dumpster fire at 5-0 right now, but Trevor Zegras just taken over. I mean, he's just so good. And I think even John Buccigross was saying that he doesn't belong at the AHL level. He belongs at the NHL level. So the fact that he's getting reps in with the goals it's unfair. It is unfair to the opposing teams.
Get your Trevor Zegras jerseys now. Because there aren't going to be too many that they make. Get them now.
No, for sure. He'll be up in Anaheim before you know it. But something else I noticed is he's quite an asset on the power play. Imagine that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, his zone entries and overall positioning was solid on special teams. That's one of the things I specifically wrote down about him on my notepad here against Colorado. Like we talked about in our season preview, he's just an elite player. Elite. The score sheet may have only showed a secondary assist against Colorado, but those skills definitely make him a threat because guess what? That assist came on the power play. Yeah, he is such a threat and such an asset. 5-on-5 power play. He is. He yeah, he made the young Eagles player look bad on turnovers, and yeah, it's just he doesn't look like he looks like his game is grown ass man game. Like he doesn't play like one of the younger guys like a Miles Gendron or a Jean-Luc Foudy. It's it's super impressive. It's a sight to behold. Go ahead.
It's funny because I remember when he scored the shootout winner against Bakersfield in the exhibition game, and he looked bored doing it. He's like, "This is easy puck," and I was just like, God. "Yeah." He just torched that poor goalie, and looks like yeah, okay,
par for the course.
Does this get better? Do I have to try now? Like he's such a weapon, and part of me thinks that Anaheim is going to call him up in like the next week or so. And then part of me thinks they're not. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. He has a lot of talent, but like there are still some things I'd like to see smoothed out. And even he has mentioned them too. Like there is a big difference of doing puck retrievals off the wall as a winger against big dudes who will come down and like pressure you. And being able to make those incredibly crucial, like retrievals off the wall, receptions off the wall. And that was something he mentioned. And it's always like, it's one of those little things that you don't really see unless you know what you're looking for. And I think that's something that's going to get cleaned up. And like, yeah, he can do that in Anaheim, but I think there is at least a chance that he sticks around in San Diego for longer than we all anticipate. And at the end, we're like, why haven't they called it? Like, what is going, like, I don't know, but I think that there's a non-zero chance that he sticks around for not the entire season, but a good portion of it. And I think that could work out well for them, or for him. I think too many times teams are like, oh, this is a top prospect, got to put him in the NHL right away. And like Capo Caco, it's
That's
like
exactly what I
you
was thinking
needed
of.
time. Like look at Kotkaniemi in Montreal. They sent him to Laval even after he was in the NHL, and he grew there. He learned and picked up some of the parts of his game that he needed there. And I think leaving Zegras in longer than even all of us would probably be like, what's going on? Like, he's ready. I think that may be a smart move for them, but I should stop trying to theorize about teams and their roster construction because I've been so wrong about that already in this young season.
We've been over that. Yeah.
That's enough about Zegras. There are other players on the goals. Anybody else stick out in your mind?
I mean, the guy that I mentioned that had a 2-goal night. I mean, you remember how we projected Vinny Lettieri to be a scoring asset on the power play in our preseason preview? Yeah, he did that. He scored. He did that. He scored a power play tally, and he added an even strength one for his first and second in a goals uniform. So it's amazing how being freed from 4 seasons in Hartford can have that effect.
Yeah, that happens.
That happens. Yes.
Curse of the whale.
It's a thing.
All right, Cece. So give me some game picks here. Tell me, play Swami. Tell me what's going to happen.
All right, I will. So Tynan, Salamaki, Sherwood, those guys coming back is definitely, a rejuvenation. And, it kind of puts the skaters back into the roles that they're used to, instead of having all of your skaters, bump up a line or two. It creates a little more order in the forward core and, restores a little more order to the Eagles in general. So with all that said, I think that they beat Ontario. I think Ontario will be their first victim and victory of that reshuffling. I say they put up at least 3 or 4 goals on the Reign en route to a multi-goal win. I think they come back and they make a statement, and this is going to be their statement game that, okay, yeah, we've got our players back now and it's time to quit messing around and get her done. So, don't be surprised if it's a 4-1, 5-2 victory. San Diego, I think, is going to be a tougher customer. Imagine that after we just pump their tires for a good, 10 minutes or so. But I think it will be a much closer game on Saturday, though, than it was in the season opener the previous Saturday. The Gulls are going to find some way to stay undefeated, and they're going to take it in overtime.
All right. I am going to agree with you there. I'm going to I like those picks. I think Ontario is still figuring things out, but I don't think Ontario is as bad as as their record has been so far. I definitely think that they have too much talent on that team, but there's definitely still a lot of feeling out to go there. They will. I think they're going to be a team that's going to, struggle for a little bit longer, and then all of a sudden it's going to just all drop into place, and they're just going to go on a tear. Like they're going to look like world beaters as long as the Black and Silver Bandits can keep most of the gang together. But yeah, I think you're right. I think Colorado takes that one. I don't know if I would say as handily as I think that they are starting to put more of the pieces together. I could see them, chasing that one to overtime. But I think the Gulls are probably going to whack you. Like, I can't spend all that time being like Trevor Zegras. And I mean, as long as there's no, neon knee shenanigans, I think the Gulls will be a safe bet there.
Okay. That's fair. Yeah. I don't mind you being a contrarian, by the way. I'm not bitter.
No. I mean, that's my honest opinion. I don't say things just to oppose you. That would be silly. I'm not Skip Bayless. You're not Shannon. So we're not going to do that.
Skip. Yeah, definitely not going to channel Denver Broncos tight end. Great tight end, Hall of Famer tight end. Not pumping his tires or anything, but anyway, I think that's the show. Did we get through it? Yeah, we're done.
That is our preview for the week. We could not get to every team. We are only 2 people and Elaine.
And Elaine.
So we will try and cover as many on a rotating basis as we can here. Maybe in the future we will get to do a lightning round where we just real quick, rattle off some thoughts and some picks. But for this young season, we're going to stick to the guns that we have. But that is it for our show. If you guys are enjoying the show, please make sure you subscribe so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, please rate and review the podcast wherever you're listening to it from, or if you're watching us on YouTube, like the video and comment what you thought of the episode. Doing so helps others find the show, and your reviews help us improve it. You can also follow the show on social media. We are at Calder Farmstead on Twitter and at the Calder Farmstead on Instagram and Facebook. Links to all of that and more can be found in our link tree, which is scrolling along the bottom of the video here. But also for those listening is linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. It has links to all the places you can get the podcast. And then down below at the bottom has the links to our social media, as well as our email address. So if you're Jay Leach, you can collect on your 6-pack of beer.
And I'm CC Hockley. The Calder Farmstead is part of the Full Press Radio Network. You can find this program, other hockey podcasts, and a plethora of different sports programming at Full Press Coverage. That website's pretty straightforward, www.fullpresscoverage.com. You can find me representing Full Press Hockey on Twitter through the @FPC_AHL account. You can also find me on my personal account at CCHawk. That's SEESEEHAWK for pro wrestling, memes, music, and of course, hockey. And you can find my writing, the game recaps and feature pieces that I do for Full Press Coverage at Full Press AHL at www.fullpresshockey.com. If you want to go AHL specific, you can add a little / in there and type in AHL at the end of that URL. Sean.
I'm Sean O'Brien. You can find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien 81. That's SeanObrien81. I'm also on Instagram at Sean O'Brien _81. Those are both personal accounts. They're, mostly hockey takes, but occasionally I'll throw in some pop culture things, making fun of the Zack Snyder Justice League cut because dumb. You can also find all of the stats that we talk about on the show that we didn't cite elsewhere. So the point shares model and a bunch of other stuff that will eventually get up and running here as soon as Stockton gets a game in at my Tableau page at bit.ly/data-dump-and-chase, all lowercase, all one word. And at last but not least here, big shout out to Adrian Drake, who made our theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction, DYSFUNCTION, so he can make music for you too.
And don't forget to comment on Sean's take on the new Mortal Kombat movie trailer, because he did comment on that today as well.
So much hope. There's so much potential.
There is so much potential. Yes, I'm totally with you on that. So, for Sean O'Brien, once again, I'm CC Hockley. Come back and listen to us on Tuesday, and we'll shake out how our picks worked out over the weekend. And we'll kind of review the weekend and the games at hand. So, until then, thanks for tuning in, and keep your stick on the ice.